Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Paul Bartel's film Death Race 2000. This is it's a dystopian film, kind of post-apocalyptic. Society is not really destroyed, but US society has become apparently authoritarian and more or less globalized. Apparently, the US has conquered Russia and China at the very least, because the president governs either from Moscow or Beijing, but the French are still a problem, and the European allies are in resistance to American hegemony. But one of the big things in this society is the transcontinental auto race. It is a race in which a smallish number of racers have to go from New York to New Los Angeles. And essentially they score points for killing civilians on the roadways. There's different categories. So toddlers are worth more than adult men, for instance. Old people are worth the most, women are worth more than men, children are worth more. There's a whole scoring system. And basically the objective is to get to New Los Angeles first and to have the highest score in terms of kills. This is the most popular sport in America. This is a thing that is televised, radio broadcast. The racers have fan groups, etc., etc. And we have a set of different racers with somewhat different aesthetics. So Joe Machine Gun Viterbo, played by Sylvester Stallone, is a kind of Chicago gangster guy. Calamity Jane Kelly, played by Mary Woronov, is a sort of Old West cowgirl kind of person. Matilda the Hun, played by Roberta Collins, is a neo-Nazi. Ray Lonigan, also known as Nero the Hero, played by Martin Kove, is a sort of weird, Greco-Roman guy, maybe. And then David Carradine plays Frankenstein, the hero of the movie, in a way. He's the most popular racer. He's regarded as a legend. He's the only one to have won twice. And supposedly he has just been absolutely destroyed in crashes. Like the legend is that he has lost both of his legs in different crashes. He's lost his arm. He's lost most of his chest. Huge portions of his face are gone. Both of his eyes have had to be replaced. And basically the idea is that he's been surgically reconstructed over and over and over again. And now he's the greatest racer of all time, basically. The actual race part itself is not super interesting. Like, yes, you get some people who are brutally run over, or, Machine Gun Joe Viterbo has a large knife on the front of his car, so he runs that knife into people periodically, etc., etc. And, it's 1975 action movie kind of stuff. What's somewhat more interesting, there's also gratuitous nudity and stuff. So again, 1975 action movie type stuff. But what's more interesting is the politics of it. Because while this race is going on, and within this totalitarian regime, you also have a resistance movement led by a woman named Thomasina Paine, who, as we find out, is actually the grandmother of Annie Smith, played by Simone Griffith, who's Frankenstein's navigator. So each driver has a navigator, somebody who finds them the best route where they can get the highest number of scores. Annie Smith is actually a member of the resistance. And the plan that the resistance has developed is to eventually kidnap Frankenstein and hold him hostage because he's a personal friend of the president, who's just called Mr. President. The plan is to ransom Frankenstein for the abolition of the transcontinental auto race. It seems unlikely that the president would do, but that's their big plan. Like, that's the thing that they think is most important, apparently, about this totalitarian world government. He's like, we've really got to stop this race where, I mean, it sucks for these people who die, but it's realistically a comparatively small number of people who die. I mean, we see maybe like 20, 25 deaths. That's not great, but it's not terrible. Like, among the crimes of totalitarian regimes, this one is not super, super egregious necessarily. But this is their big plan. For whatever reason, the resistance feels like the transcontinental auto race is really the thing that they need to target to bring down the regime of Mr. President. Now, this authoritarian regime is itself really weird. It's one of those sort of Schrodinger's authoritarianisms, where on the one hand, they're apparently powerful enough that they can run the world, or the majority of the world, and that they can set up a car race in which the objective is to just randomly kill people. And everybody's like, yeah, that seems fine. I'm not going to worry about that as a problem. So they are clearly this powerful regime, and yet at the same time, they seem completely incompetent. Thomasina Paine and her small group of ragtag rebels is able to hack into the broadcast of the race and broadcast her message of liberation. But then, and as far as we can tell, the authorities make no real attempt to ever catch them or do anything about this. The resistance basically manages to blow up most of the drivers. So, like, out of the 5 drivers, 3 of them are blown up by the resistance. Clearly, they're very effective, and the authoritarian regime that's meant to rule with an iron fist is not really all that successful. But the other thing that's weird, the other Schrodinger's authoritarianism element to this, is that Frankenstein. We learn that Frankenstein is not a man, because Frankenstein wears a full body, sort of, I don't know, vinyl outfit or something like that. He wears a helmet. He wears a mask that covers most of his face whenever he's in public. Annie at one point does remove his mask. He agrees to let her do that. And underneath is not the hideously disfigured Frankenstein who's been cobbled together from different pieces. It is David Carradine, just his regular face. And what we learn is that he has been raised in a government facility specifically to be a racer. And Frankensteins just regularly die. They actually don't survive in the way the legend would have it. They get replaced, and the legend continues to grow. Oh, he survived, but he lost his leg, and they had to replace it, and now he's back, fully functioning leg, etc., etc. We learn that this is not the case, that he is in fact just a dude who has been raised in a government facility specifically to do this one thing. Now, what's weird about that is that he also plans to kill Mr. President. He has a hand grenade. And when I say hand grenade, I don't mean like he has a grenade that he can throw with his hand. I mean, he has amputated one of his hands and replaced it with a mechanized thing that has a grenade embedded in it. Yeah, it's a hand grenade. It's a clever ass pun. But basically the idea, actually I think it's his right hand. Because the idea is that only the winner of the transcontinental road race gets to shake hands with Mr. President. And so Frankenstein, the plan is to pull the pin on that grenade, shake the dude's hand, blow them both up, and thereby topple the regime. This doesn't end up ultimately happening. Joe Machine Gun Viterbo is in the final moments of the race trying to run Frankenstein off the road. Frankenstein is trying to run Viterbo off the road. And so Annie takes the hand grenade, takes the hand and the hand grenade, pulls the pin, throws it into Viterbo's car. He gets blown up. Frankenstein wins. The problem is they now don't have the hand grenade. So the plan is that Annie dresses in Frankenstein's costume. She gets up on the podium with Mr. President. She's going to try and stab him. Doesn't work because Thomasina Paine shoots her, thinking it's Frankenstein. She's accidentally shot her granddaughter. Well, it's fine because Annie survives. Apparently, Thomasina Paine is a terrible shot. So, that's how it is. Then, Frankenstein, who's actually still in the car and now just in his underwear, I guess, revs the engine and boom, slams it right into the podium on which Mr. President is standing. This kills Mr. President, at which point Frankenstein, I guess, becomes the new president, weirdly enough. And this is one of the bits where the movie takes a weird turn, because Frankenstein's approach to being the new president is a weird mix of still authoritarian while also being liberatory. So he says he's going to restore free and fair elections. He says he's going to return the capital to New Los Angeles because the country shouldn't be governed from abroad. He says he's going to introduce the resistance members into his cabinet. And so he's making all of these unilateral decisions, which is an authoritarian technique, but he is doing it in the interests, theoretically, of liberalizing the government. Thomasina Paine is included in that government. She is going to be the Minister for Domestic Security or something like that. And her sort of last words on the subject are basically, if you don't like happiness, you can find somewhere else to live. So it is, again, this like weird authoritarian element of like, we're going to liberalize you by force. And if you don't like it, you will suffer the consequences. But then the other thing that Frankenstein announces is that the transcontinental road race will be abolished. Junior Bruce, played by Don Steele, who's one of the race announcers, is like, you can't do that. Americans love the race. We don't want you to abolish it. I'm going to stand in front of your car as you're driving off from your wedding to Annie Smith. And Frankenstein has abolished this road race because it's a bad thing to randomly kill people with a car. That's the ethical premise, basically. Junior Bruce is standing there, like, haranguing him about this. And Annie's like, do we have to listen to this guy? And Frankenstein's like, no, we don't. And he just runs him over. So again, it's this weird thing where it's like, okay, you just abolished the road race because murdering people with cars is bad. And then because a guy is questioning your decision, your arbitrary, absolute ruler, singular decision, you kill him. I mean, sure, you can reintroduce free and fair elections, but you've just killed someone for challenging your point of view and a decision that you have unilaterally made. And you have killed him in a way that violates the thing that he is complaining, or the decision that you made that he is complaining about. So it's a weird, contradictory movie in that sense.